Hello, and thank you for using the TrainTrack software. In this video, we will be going over the basic features of TrainTrack and how to use them. First, let's talk about a few ways to get help directly from the client or desktop interface. Here from the ribbon at the top, click on the Help tab, and you will see a couple of options. First is the online help files. These are going to be help files or a user manual for how to use the software that have a lot of tutorials, information for how to perform a lot of the tasks in TrainTrack. So if you see something that says tutorial in parentheses next to the link, you can be reassured that you will see a step-by-step typed out instruction on the left and the illustration that correlates with that step on the right-hand side. So it's super easy to follow along. If you go back here, you can look through any of the other topics you'd like to review. These will be grouped together by categories, but if you cannot find what you're looking for, you can always scroll to the very bottom and click on Index, where you will see a list of items listed by their keywords. So it's easy to scroll through and locate what you need to find this way as well. So for example, if you are looking for how to create exams, you can scroll down to the E's and click on exams setup, and you will see a lot of information and instructions on how to set those up. All right, so if you go back to TrainTrack and back to the help tab, you will also see an option for support tickets and support articles. So if you click on that link, you will be taken to our knowledge base homepage where you can submit a support ticket if you would like by clicking this button at the bottom, or you can type in any part of a question that you may have that's a little bit more technical, maybe a message you are seeing on your screen that you're not sure what it means. So for example, if you want to learn more about user permissions, you can click or you can type in, user permissions or user levels, and then locate uh, whichever result best fits your need. Click on that, and you will see the the answer you may be looking for. So for user permissions, you can see a list of all the permissions and the user levels. And if you need more information, a lot of times there will be either links to videos or in this case, a PDF that you can either click on or copy paste, and that will take you to a PDF with, in this case, it is a very detailed diagram with all the user permissions for each interface of TrainTrack. All right, so that is how you can locate the online help files or the user guide, submit a support ticket, search through the support articles, the knowledge base. But please feel free to also reach out to us by phone, email, or the chat button on our website if you need any assistance, and we'll be more than happy to help. Also, there is a library of, or like a video library that we have created for your reference if you would like to learn how to use either the more advanced features of TrainTrack, such as importing data, creating custom reports, parent-child modules, series, and there are also individual videos on all of these topics as well. All right, so let's go back to the Home tab, and we are now looking at the home page. So here you will just see in the middle a spot for you to add any sort of notes, reminders. You can use this top portion any way you'd like. You can have as many pages of notes and reminders. Here you can sort through them. And to the right of that is a daily tip section that we encourage you to look through a couple of these each time you log on to learn another skill in TrainTrack or two. So once you've done reviewing that, at the bottom here, you will see a list of any of your upcoming training classes, and you can double click on the training title to go to that training detail screen if you would like. Otherwise, you can use any of the menu buttons on the left side here to go to any of the screens that you may need. So for the training, if you want to look at your training list, you can click on the list button next to training. And here you will see a list of all of your training records sorted by either the training title or the training number, depending on what your settings are set to. So to review that, you can go to options and settings at the top and then click on sort training by title or number. And this will allow you to select how you want all of your lists and reports to be sorted. So if you prefer number, you can select that. Otherwise, I believe the default will be title. Right, so on the screen, you can actually also sort by any of the column headers just by simply clicking on the little down arrow next to the column header name and selecting which sort order you would like to see. And you can also click and drag if you would like to change the orientation or the order of the columns here on this training list. At the very bottom of the screen, you will see the status dropdown. So by default, you will only see your active training. But if you would like to see all active and inactive or just your inactive training, you can select that status here at the bottom. To add a new training, you can click this button at the top that says Add New Training, either from the training list or the training detail screen. But please note there is also a way to import training records in bulk if you would prefer by going to the Import Data button here at the bottom left, but that will be covered in the more advanced features class or that you could review, or there is also a separate video just on how to import data. Okay, so let's go ahead and add a new training. Here you can enter the training title. So let's use cybersecurity, for example. And you'll need to enter a training number, and this has to be a unique training number. So all training and employee records must have their own unique number associated with them. So let's do security, SEC. And this could be alphanumerical, as many, you can have numbers, letters, a combination of both, up to you. Then the revision. So by default, the revision will be set to 0, but you can always update this to be any revision that you would like. This is also alphanumerical field, so you can have it be numbers, letters, whatever you prefer. Then you will see the description field, which is an optional field. So if you'd like to add a description here, you can do that. Otherwise, you're free to leave this blank if you want. Then you have the release date. So the release date, we highly encourage you always have a release date listed for your training records because that is one of the two ways that TrainTrack calculates due dates for your employees that are required to complete a training. It will either be calculated based on the release date of the training plus the grace period or the employee's start date plus the grace period, whichever date comes later. And the grace period is just the number of days employees have to complete a training before it's past due. So always have these two fields filled out so you don't ever run into any issues with due dates calculations and reporting. And the release date can be a current date, a future date, a past date, completely up to you. Just make sure you have some sort of date listed here in this field. Next is the status dropdown. So if you're not ready to go live with a training, or if you are done using a training, you'd like to retire a training, so to speak, you can change the status to inactive from this dropdown. Then we have the training type. So you can either type in a new training type or select one from your dropdown of training types here. And to manage your training types, you can either double click in this field or you can go to lookup lists and select which list you would like to manage, but there is a separate video on how to manage your lookup lists as well. So if you're interested, please review that video as well. Next is the document or training owner field that you can select. This is also optional. This dropdown will just have a list of all of your active employees listed. And next is the grace period. So you can also set your default grace period up in options and settings. And grace period before training is due. So I have mine set to 14 days, but you can always change it to any number of days you would like, or you can always edit it directly on the screen as well. You can enter the number of hours. And then you can also link a file. So linking a file to a training will allow your employees to review that file before they take an exam. If you do not have any employees logging on to take exams, you can also just use this link field for internal use, maybe just to house the SOP document or whatever you may want to link to a training. So if you just have a web accessible link, maybe a SharePoint link, a YouTube video, a website, you can go and directly click in this field and paste in any link that you would like, and you're all set. Otherwise, if you would rather link something that is on your local drive, you can, let's go back and delete that. You can right click and select hyperlink, and then click this little button here that says browse to a file to open your actual network folder and locate any file that you would like to link to a training. So for example, let's go to my desktop here. Make sure that right here where there's a drop down for types of files, you might want to select all files if you see that only Office files are listed by default. So if you click on all files, you will see all different sorts of files here. Now, I'm not sure if I have something about cybersecurity, but let's just use an example of workplace safety. Click OK. And just make sure you're not changing anything in these two fields. So the text to display, leave that as is, and also the address, leave that as is as well. Just click on OK, and you're all set. So now you've added a image in this case or a file to this training record. So later you can click on this and the file will open for you. You can also set an expiration period and length for your training records. So if you know that your employees will have to get retrained on this training, let's say every 12 months, you can type in 12 in this first field and then select whether it's months or days on the second drop down here. So you can, do 90 days, 180 days, or 6 months, 12 months, whatever you prefer. Or if you don't want the training to ever expire, you can just leave this field blank and the training will only expire if you manually expire it later, if you add a new revision that requires retraining or add something in this field later. So keep that in mind. But a little tip here as well is if you don't want a training to expire, just leave this field blank. Do not put a 0 because that will just expire the training the moment it's completed. So if you don't want the training to expire, leave this field blank. All right, so that is how you go about adding a training record. So we've added the training. We now want to require the training for some of our employees. There are several ways to add requirements. If you know a training will be required for all employees, you can simply just click on this little yes radio button next to required for all employees, and this will be now required for everybody that is active on your employee list. Otherwise, let's click on no here and add requirements for by going to requirements, required by, and selecting who you want to add the requirements for. A department, some individuals, a job title. So let's go to department and add a couple of departments here. You can select as many as you would like. You can also edit by going back and selecting a different department instead. You can also delete by clicking the red X. To add individual requirements, you can change this to requirements required by and then individual and select as many from this drop down as well. If you type in the first letter or first few letters of an employee's last name, you will be taken to that spot on the list. So it's a little shortcut. Let's see. And again, you can always edit and delete any requirements from this screen as well. And lastly is job titles. So same thing here, you can select as many job titles to require for to complete this training. And keep in mind that with TrainTrack, you can also assign multiple job titles or roles to an employee. So you can have actual job titles and additional job titles assigned to employees. You can even create a job title for a group, any group of people who need to complete a training, maybe a special project, anything could be, a job title that you can assign to your employees as an additional job title. And any training that is required for their additional job titles will also be automatically required for the employees. So that will save you a lot of time and really help you fine tune your training requirements in TrainTrack. So let's go ahead and add one more job title here. And of course, you can go back and edit if you need to, or delete using this red X. All right, so we've added requirements, but let's say there are a couple individuals in the QA specialist role that do not need to complete training. Or let's say, for example, we have this training required for everybody, but maybe some people don't. So it may be easier to add exceptions rather than adding requirements for certain groups of people. So if that is the case, you can always go to requirements and exceptions, and you can add exceptions for an entire department. So you would select the department from the list that does not need to complete the training, and you can type in a reason if you would like. You can always edit the department by selecting a different department and delete by clicking the red X. You can also add exceptions for a higher date range. So if you only want this training required for those hired after this date and before this date, you can type in the dates in these fields, and the training will only be required for those individuals. You can also add exceptions for individuals. So if the whole department needs a training, but perhaps one person does not, you can select them from this list, type in a reason if you would like. And again, you can always edit and delete if need be. And lastly is the job title. So if anyone has a, let's say, the auditor job title or additional job title listed for them, they will not be required to complete this training, even though the rest of the company is required to, for example. Again, you can delete and edit the exceptions as well. And now we've added our requirements and exceptions. So now we are ready to notify our employees that training is due for them. There's a few ways to do that here. So if you go to export an email, you will see an option to either configure automatic email, or you can send manual email notices by selecting which type of notice you want to send. Um, but let's look at the configure automatic email screen really quick. So on this first tab, on the initial setup of TrainTrack, you will enter in your server information and your email account login information here, and send a test message to make sure the notices can be sent. And once you're all set, you can then select which type of notices you would like to set up. So if you want to enable due notices, you would just have to check off the box next to who you want the notices to be sent to. So employees, supervisors, and or a list of recipients. To enable, you just check the box. To disable, you uncheck the box. So for due notices, you can send notices of training due or expiring within however many days. So let's say 60 days, and notices will be repeated every, let's say, 5 days. We recommend keeping this date 30 days or less, just because if there is an exam assigned to a training, if they get a notice of training due within 60 days, they will not be able to see that training on their training dropdown when they log in, because the training dropdown only shows training that's expiring or due in the next 30 days. If you need, we can always customize that for you to be available, 60 days or 90 days before a training's expired. But by default, it is 30 days um, before trainings due or expiring that you can actually log in and complete it. All right, so everything on the screen is customizable as far as, a list of recipients you want to send the notices to. You can add as many emails here in this field as you would like, separated by a comma. And then you can also change what the body of the email will say along with the attachment that is sent to them with all their training due or expiring. So if you have the web interface, we recommend also adding a link to your web interface here. So you can say something like, please, click here to complete your training. And then you would paste in your link here in this spot. All right, so that is due notices. You can also set up schedule notices. So these will be automatic emails sent to any employees and or their supervisors and or a list of recipients with any message you'd like as soon as they're scheduled to attend a class. And then schedule reminders, let's say 2 days before the class is actually being hosted. You can also have reminders be sent so that they don't forget to attend the classes. Then we have the monthly notices. So let's say on the 10th of every month, I want, let's say, the supervisors or, whoever, a list of recipients to receive a report of all the training due or expiring within the next 31 days. You can enable this as well. And lastly are the new employee notices. So if you have these enabled by checking off this box, this will send an email to any newly added employees that will let them know what their login credentials are and what the login link is for them to log into TrainTrack if you have the web interface. All right, so those are the automatic email notices, but you can also send manual email notices as well. So with the manual email notices, you can send them to employees and the supervisors and to a list of recipients. So here, if you wanted to send to just one employee, you would locate the employee using the record count buttons at the bottom. And once you locate the employee you want to send the email to, you can click on either send to selected employee, or if you want to send the notices to all employees, there is a button for that as well. All right, so once the training or once the notices have gone out, letting employees know that training is due for them, you can also create either an exam or schedule a training class for that training to actually deliver the training for them. So if you go to the exam option on this dropdown, you will be able to create an exam. So exams are great because when your employees complete an exam, the completion gets added automatically, so you don't have to worry about going in later and adding completions. Simply just set up an exam. That's as easy as I have read the required material or document or whatever you would like. So you would put the question at the top here. Question number 1, I have read the required material. And then the answers would go on the bottom. So you would put letter answer A, yes, and then you can assign a point value. So anything greater than 0 will be the correct answer. So let's say you can do 1 point, 10 points, 100 points, whatever you prefer. And then for B, you can put no, and that will be the incorrect answer. So you will put 0 for the points. If you want, you can also add a second question. So watch what happens when I click in number 2. Oops. You will see that now the answers are going to be cleared out, so you can add answers for number 2. So let's just question example. So now you can go and add true, and that will be incorrect. So we'll put 0 points there. And then B will be false, and that will be the correct answer, for example. And that's as easy as, it's super simple to add exam questions and answers. You can always go back and edit any of the questions and answers as needed. And if you need to edit the answers for number 1, you would click on number 1 question first, and then you'll see the answers updated at the bottom. Click number 2, and you'll see answers for number 2. So once you're all done setting up your exam, you'll just want to click on update points. So TrainTrack can calculate the maximum number of points your employees can get. So in our case, it will be 200 since each question is worth 100 points. And then you can edit the passing score. So let's say I just need them to get one of the 2 questions right. I could put in 100, but if I want them to get both questions right, you would put the passing score as 200 out of a possible 200 points. And when you're all done setting up the exam, you would click on the is the exam required checkbox. And so once you have this checked off, now everyone that's required to complete this training will need to log on and complete the exam that's associated with the training, and then the completion will be added for them automatically. If you do not want your employees logging in to TrainTrack for whatever reason, if you prefer to give out a paper exam, just keep in mind that if you click on this button at the bottom that says preview exam, you will see the exam that is in a paper format, if you will. So from here, you can export it as a PDF, a Word document. You can print this, whatever you prefer, and then click on Close Report if you would like to go back to the training details screen. So that is how you create an exam. If you want to schedule a class instead, you can also go to Classes and go to Schedule. Here you can select a start date for a class. So let's just say it's going to be today. The end date will be populated for the same day as well. The start time, let's say that will be at 4 p.m., for example. The end time, you can either select an end time or it will auto-populate based on what you have listed here in the hours field on the right. You can also select an instructor. Since this is a brand new training we just added, there are no approved instructors for this training, so you can always type in a new training instructor's name. So let's see here, IT manager, for example. It's going to ask if you want to add IT manager to your list of approved instructors for this training. So then next time you can just select them from the drop down. And lastly, you'll want to select a location for the training. So any location you can select from your drop down, but of course you can double click to manage that the class locations lookup list. All right, so now we have the class scheduled and we now want to enroll employees. There's a couple ways to do this. You can either click on the Add Employees button on the right-hand side here, and this will allow you to enroll either a whole job title. So you would click title, select the job title, click check. Now everyone that has the job title of analyst or additional job title of analyst will get checked off right here below and be enrolled in the class. And then you can also do the same thing for departments. So perhaps click on department and click check. Now everyone with the Department of Management listed will also be checked off and required to complete this attend this class. Okay, you can also manually check off any employees here by clicking the little check mark next to their name. And if you want to see just a list of who is required to complete this training, you can click on this link down at the bottom. When you're all set, you can click on the add button at the bottom, and everybody that has a check mark next to their name will now be enrolled in this class, and you will see them listed down here below. And on the right-hand side, there's several different types of sign-in sheets you can print. Some of them will have a barcode, some of them will not. So you can later scan barcodes to add completions quickly, but essentially you would just bring the sign-in sheet to the class and have your employees sign next to their name to acknowledge they attended. So we have sign-in sheets for this class with or without barcodes, one for all employees, one for required employees. There's also a class roster you can print. And then once the class is done, you can click on Mark All Complete here, and the completion will be added for everybody that is enrolled. Or you can just type in or paste in a date in the completion field next to the employee names. And just know that if you don't have a date listed for somebody on your enrolled employee list here, they will not get a completion added. And lastly, here on the bottom right, you will see an option to print certificates. So once this class has been completed and you have completions added, you can click on the print certificate screen and print out those certificates to give out to your employees if you would like. All right, so let's talk about adding completions because there are several different ways to add completions if you are not adding them by either checking off Mark All Complete from the class screen like I just showed, or by setting up exams for the training. So here you can either go scroll to the bottom of your list and select any employee name to add a completion for them. You can type in the first few letters of the employee's name. The date will be populated to today's date by default. You can always edit this date to be any date you'd like. And then once you click on refresh, the employee will be added. So it's as simple as that. You can always add another completion by selecting another employee's name. You can also actually add completions directly from the status screen. So here on the status screen, you'll see who is required. And to add a completion from the status screen, you simply just need to double click in the complete field and then either type in or paste in a completion date and hit enter and you're all set. So now you will see the completion added and the expiration date is automatically calculated because we have that 12-month expiration period. You can also add completions directly from the from the employee record as well. Same thing, you can either add it from the status screen by double clicking in the complete date or going to the completion history screen and entering a completion date in the complete field there. So same thing as what we're looking at here, except it'll be the employee's name at the top and then the training names listed down below. There's also a way to add multiple completions quickly by using the quick add feature here on the left. And this will allow you to add multiple completions for a training at once for the same date. So Since we're looking at cybersecurity, you will see that that is the training that is selected, but you can always select a different training if you would like at the top here. And then this screen is similar to the enroll employees in a class screen because you will see that there are the job title and departments drop down. So if you want to add um, completions for an entire job title, anybody that has auditor as a job title or additional job title will be checked off down below. You can do the same for the departments, check off multiple employees by selecting the whole department. And then we also talked briefly about the barcodes on class sign-in sheets. You can also use employees' badges if they have barcodes on them, but essentially what you can do is put your cursor in this field, start scanning those barcodes, and as you're scanning them, you will see the little check marks be checked off next to their name. So once you're all done here, and if you want to see just who is required to complete this training, you can check off the show required employees only, and you can also add requirements this way, or I'm sorry, add completions for those employees as well. So check off anyone that needs a completion added. And then when you're all done, you can confirm the date, enter a cost if you would like, and then click on add. Now everybody that has a check mark next to their name will get a completion added for the selected training. Another way to add completions is by importing them, but again, importing data is covered in the advanced features class, or there's a separate video on just importing data if you'd like to see that. Alrighty, one last thing with training records. If you ever need to add a new revision, you will not be able to edit it directly from the training detail screen once the training has been added. You will have to go here to add new training. Or I'm so sorry, let me go back. You will need to go back to, where's cybersecurity? Let's refresh the screen. There it is. Okay, I apologize. So to add a new revision, you would click on add new revision. And on this screen, you can add a new revision. So we were on A, so let's say B, for example. You'll want to always have a release date. And then you can select whether retraining is required. So if you're just wanting to add a new revision and none of the completions to be affected, you can check off the no retraining needed box. Or if everyone needs retraining, you can select this option, and this will expire all the previous completions for the previous revisions, and everybody will have to get retrained on the new revision that you have listed here. So once you click add, that's when the statuses will update if you have everyone needs retraining selected. Alrighty, let's take a look at employee records really quickly, since they're very similar to training records. So your employee list will have all of your active employees listed unless you select inactive or all from the bottom status to show. And again, here you can sort by any of the column headers by clicking the down arrow, and you can always click and drag any of the columns to rearrange them. To open an employee record, you can just double click on the employee's name. And to add a new employee, you can click on add new employee at the top. So adding an employee is almost identical to adding a training record like I just showed. So let's kind of go through the fields and go over what each one is for an existing employee. Alrighty, so at the top here, you'll notice that all your training and employee records are locked for editing. This is so you don't accidentally delete or change something, but you can always click the little edit button and you will be able to make any changes you would like. So here we have the basic information for the employee. We have their last name, their first name, their ID number. Again, the ID number has to be unique for all employees, as well as training records. Then the primary job title will be listed here, their department here, and their email address. So we encourage you to add the email address, especially the first time you are adding an employee, because if you have your default login settings set for the email address to be used for either the employee's login for TrainTrack or their temporary password, you'll want to make sure you do have an email address listed the first time you either import or add the employee. And that's also helpful for them to receive notices of training due and things like that if they have an email listed. You can then select a supervisor from the list of all of your active employees here, select a shift, employee type here, their location, and add their start date. So again, important to always have a start date listed because that is one of the two ways TrainTrack calculates due days, the start date plus the grace period, or the training release date plus the grace period, whichever one comes later. And lastly, we have the status. So if your employee is no longer with the company, or if they're on extended leave and you want to make them inactive, you can select the status here. Or you can always delete an employee, and keep in mind that if you are an administrator, you can always restore a deleted training record by going to database administration and selecting if you want to restore a deleted employee or restore a deleted training. And when you restore that record, all the completions, the requirements, and all the information will be restored along with the record. So it's almost like you never deleted that record. All right. And down at the bottom here, of course, you can select what information you want to see that relates to the employees. So for example, if you want to see their completions, you can go and see their completed exams if they have any. You can see their completion history, completions that are not expired yet. You can go to employee info, and under HR here, you can um, type in any of their personal information as well as link a file to their records. Same thing here, you can either paste a link to something like SharePoint, or you can right click and hyperlink um, and select a file from your local drive. Keep in mind though, for linking files to training records, employees, or completions, if you are on the cloud edition of TrainTrack, you will not be able to use the hyperlink feature to link something that's on your local drive because the cloud servers do not have access to your local drive, so it won't be able to open the document. But if you have the installed version of TrainTrack, then feel free to link something from your local drive. Alrighty, so that's HR. If you want to add any notes for the, about the employee, you can use the notes feature. You can add a list of skills under skills. And if they are a supervisor, you can see a list of their subordinates by going to employee info and subordinates. All right, for job titles and roles, if you want to add any additional job titles to the employee, you can go here and select that as well. And any additional or any training required for the additional job titles will be automatically required for the employees as soon as you add their additional job titles, as well as whenever you add a primary job title and department, requirements will be added automatically for that employee as well. There is also a do I qualify field. So if this employee wants to change positions per se, you can select whichever job title that they're interested in from this list, and you will see what training is required for that position. In this case, this employee has not completed the 3 required training for the supervisor position, so they would need to complete that before they can get promoted. Or if you're needing to use this field for something like seeing who is qualified to take on, to cover for another supervisor or something along those lines. There's also a place for you to check to see the job title history for each employee here under job title roles as well. You can see requirements and exceptions from requirements, and then their status, which we already went over. And then if you're wanting to pull a report that's just for this one employee or just whatever training record you're looking at, you will also see an option. So you'll go to the home tab at the top, and then you will see the status, complete, or history report you can pull for the selected employee or training record. So here you'll see that employee's information at the top, as well as all their required training statuses, what's been completed, any notes, job title history, all of that. So that's that. Okay, so one more thing I wanted to go over, and that would be globally updating supervisors. This is a newly added feature that I think is really great, that will save you a lot of time. So let me show you how to use that. So Database Administration tab from the ribbon at the top, and click on Globally Update Supervisor. This will allow you to select a previous supervisor. And once you select the previous supervisor, it will show you all the employees that have this supervisor listed for them. And then you can select who you want the new supervisor to be. And then when you're all set, you would click on Move Employees. And anyone that had this supervisor listed for them will now have the new supervisor listed for them. So now instead of having to go to all these employees and manually updating it, you can just use the globally update supervisor feature and quickly assign a new supervisor to all these employees. Let's talk about reports. Again, the custom report designers and filters will be covered either in the separate video about custom reports or in the more advanced feature video if you'd like to review that. But just the simple report menu with all the standard reports can be viewed here by going to report menu. You will see all the reports listed here at the bottom, alphabetically sorted. It may look a little overwhelming the first time you see this list. Just keep in mind, most of these are the same report, just sorted by different, departments or employees. So all the status reports are from here to here, for example, but they're just sorted different. So same report, but sorted by department, employee, job title, training, whatever you want the report sorted by, you would just double click on that report name and it will show you, in this example, training required, status of training required by employee, you will see all the last names sorted alphabetically and all the training um, status is listed. So you'll see the name, their job title, department, the training that's required for them, training number, date completed, date expires, and the completion status listed. As far as all reports go, you can always export them to Excel, PDF, print them, and you'll notice at the top there's a logo. You can always change this to be your own company logo just by simply going to options and settings and add your logo to reports. So you can just copy and paste your own company logo in that field. All right, you can close the report. And if there are certain reports you use more often than others, you can always select the report and click on Add to Favorites. And you can add as many as you would like. And then later you can just go to favorites on this drop down and select from just your favorites or most used reports. You can always remove by selecting the training or the report and click on remove from favorites and you'll see it disappear. And you can also filter reports by selecting the category here. So if I just want to see only due reports, I can click on or select due from this drop down and then select whichever report I would like to review. And one more thing here is if you scroll down to the R's, you will see the report matrix here. And this is just a matrix of every report that is available in TrainTrack on the standard report menu and what fields it includes. So if somebody is asking you to pull a report that includes cost and hours, you can go to those columns and see which ones say yes, and then see which report that is and see if that's the report you are needing. All right. I believe we covered all the basic features and how to use them. Again, feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and we also encourage you to review any of the other videos we have for either the advanced features or any of the individual topics. Thank you so much for watching this video and have a great day.